Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Roma Press live stream. Thank you for being here with me. I am your host, Andy, and the co editor of RomaPress.net. Thank you for following our channel and for coming on this live stream where we will try to come up with some things to talk about during this international break, which perhaps on the surface, international breaks are usually very sleepy periods of time where we disconnect from the team we follow, and or we follow the national our respective national teams. But it seems like this particular international break has been more eventful than any other I can recollect. And so I'll try to bring up some topics that could be interesting for this live stream. If you have any questions or talking points that you want me to address, please do so in the comments on this live stream. And don't forget to click like on the live stream as soon as you enter. It really helps us a lot to get a bit of visibility. And I will be reading the comments as always, in trying to catch up with the comments if there are more than usual. But I expect today to be a slow day. We got our patron Jew here. Ciao a tutti. Amazing Vincent saying Lukaku, Azmoun, Aouar all scoring for their respective nations. Yes. Hi, Alex. Thank you for following us all the way from Ghana. I appreciate everybody who can tune in to those live streams. I always try to schedule them at a time that is a good compromise for people from all over the world. I know that right now, by scheduling it at this time of day, I am not being fair to the people that are in the Eastern Hemisphere. So a lot of our friends from Singapore and Australia right now are probably sleeping. So but we'll try to make it work, and we'll adjust accordingly. If you don't mind my having a coffee, it's 6 o'clock where I am at, and I've had a long day. Okay, we got Matt Falcona from the Falcona Forecast, which you can follow on Twitter. What's the latest on betting scandal? Personally, I hate to see my fellow degenerates being slandered in the media. Is Zaleski free of any risk of suspension? Yes, we will discuss Nicola Zaleski, Roma fullback. His name has been mentioned in this latest scandal. Once again, Italian football is at the foreground of some very interesting news, as always, trying to outdo themselves. Hi, Michael from Kuala Lumpur. I could follow today's live stream because in Cappadocia now. Oh, okay, Michael. Well, enjoy your time in Cappadocia. I was there when I was 12. Beautiful. Went with my grandparents. Um, Really fantastic holiday. Okay, guys. So if you enjoy Roma Press, if you enjoy this channel, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. We are almost there to get to 1,000 subscribers. So please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Click the bell so you get notified whenever we drop the podcast episodes now are available on video on YouTube. And if you would like to support the show and the website, please consider becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/RomaPress. It really helps, and you get early access to episodes, you get extra episodes, and you can also get some cool gifts and obviously the inclusion into the wonderful and infamous Roma Press patron group chat. So appreciate all the patrons that have helped us over the years. I think we are right now at 224 members. So the community is getting bigger and bigger, and I'm really thankful for it. let's see. Jew Andy, is a lot of this being blown out of proportion in respect of the gambling stuff? Okay, I'll get to it. No worries, Roman Legion Anthony. No worries, you're not late to the party. We're just getting started. Um, we got Yusef. Hi, Yusef. Thank you so much for following. Okay, so I guess we can start by discussing this latest betting scandal. So, as some of you may know, or others not so. Hi, Johnny. Thank you so much. I'm good. You? Um, as some of you may know, over the last week, Nicolo Fagioli of Juventus admitted to having been involved in gambling on illegal websites, and this is something that Juventus were already aware in the summer and working on it. The authorities were also aware of this. The Italian authorities were aware of this. They were working on a list, a presumable list of players, of Italian players, from a particular generation. So around the age exactly of 20, 21, whom all supposedly shared some chats on WhatsApp, on other social media. They all were involved in some online chats where they discussed exactly illegal betting, or rather betting on illegal platforms. And Niccolo Fagioli was the first one to have his identity revealed, and in the summer he admitted and confessed to it, and is already now working with the Italian authorities to try and find a compromise that would allow him not to get banned for 3 years, because that's the maximum punishment that a player accused of illegal betting can be banned for 3 years. So Fagioli is already cooperating with the authorities, and because this thing was kept under wraps for the past few days, this guy called Fabrizio Corona, he was a former paparazzi. He is someone who took photos of players in the late 90s, early 2000s. It took very controversial photos, and then tried to extort the players in question for money, obviously. He ended up doing, I think, 3 years in prison at the turn of 2010 or something like that. He spent 3 years in a prison in Milan. Now he's out, and he got a whiff of this list of names of players that are supposedly involved in this betting scandal. And Fabrizio Corona, he's trying to sort of get some hype going around his name. He's trying to get some clout, and he's doing so by revealing step by step the identities of said players. So he mentions this is, once again, this is the lowest form of human life. Somebody like Corona, he's a guy who can still have a name only in Italy. Like this guy in any other place, he's getting blown up in a car. In Italy, they're treating him with respect. So it's unfortunate that this situation, has happened. First of all, it's unfortunate that somebody like Corona can now come out on top and look good. But this is it's something that has affected players of all teams. Supposedly, we'll know more in the next few days, because Corona, by coming out and listing these names, sort of forced the Italian authorities to speed up the process. That is why Sandro Tonali and Niccolò Zaniolo were confronted directly by the police at Italy's training, because they felt the pressure from Corona, from the media attention that Corona got, in order to show that they are aware of the situation. They're doing everything they can. Nicola Zaleschi's name was mentioned only by Corona so far. So Nicola Zaleschi is supposedly he's involved in this, but Fabrizio Corona is the only one to have made his name public. Nothing else. Zaleski has not been confronted by the authorities. Zaleski did not return to Roma. He's still with the Polish under 21 national team. So Zaleski, so far, his entourage, his family have all denied his involvement, and his agents are considering suing Corona for tarnishing Zaleski's name. So Zaleski, if you guys ask me, is he free, is he out of a risk zone? No, I don't know. That is something that I cannot tell you. I'm just saying that Nicola Zaleski so far seems to have done everything he can to not to not make it seem like he was involved in this. Former Roma player and UEFA director Zbigniew Boniek even came out in the open a few minutes ago and said, I confronted Zaleski's agent, and he told me that he's clean. So, I don't want to make, again, I don't want to further this, make accusations or say this or that. Obviously, when you're young and you have a lot of money, and you go through the same circle of people, somebody like Zaleski is also, he's somebody who grew up with the young Roman crowd, going to clubs. I mean, a year and a half ago, I believe, he had some trouble because a guy he was caught in a live video with somebody who was basically shouting, "Let's do some coke." That wasn't a good look for him. It wasn't a good look for the club. So he has a slight history in a very strange milieu, from a PR perspective. Um, Let's see what you guys have to say. The media is noticing Roma is waking up for a poor start, so they want to start another scandal since Jose wasn't sacked. No, Alex, this is not a Roma scandal. It's a football scandal in Serie A. This doesn't, it's not targeted at Roma. This is targeted at supposedly players from all teams, from Roma to Lazio to Juve to Inter. So we'll see what the real names are in a few days. I believe this is going to become more common knowledge. So far, these are only fingers being pointed, and Niccolò Fagioli is the only one to really have been in touch with the authorities and cooperating. So, so far, he's the only one who could be punished for it. So we'll see what happens. But so far, I wouldn't say openly that Nicola Zaleski is at fault. If it's true, then obviously, we have to, as a club, you must confront these situations, and you must deal with it out in the open. I I would not be happy, for example, if this comes out as true and that the club was aware of this, because then your whole image gets torn to shreds, and all the hard work goes right into the dumper. So, what Matt says, what's up groups? You say Nicolo Zagnolo is okay. God, we have a lot of patrons who make comments that are impossible to translate to the to the common viewers. I suppose it's fair to say that Corona may have a beef with some people and is looking for some payback. No, I think Corona is just somebody who spent too much time in prison and sort of became a nobody again after being a nobody for most of his life and just taking obscene photos of very well-known people, and now he's trying to get back into the game. The problem in Italy is that someone like Corona will get huge tons of publicity from really big media outlets. So he's now being invited to Sport Mediaset, to Rai, with interviews with Corriere della Sera. It's quite sad to see that it doesn't take much to become somebody in Italy, for the wrong reasons. If all of this is true, says Philip, Italy may have a chance again in the World Cup. Totonero led to the 82nd win, and Calciopoli led to 2006. Hey, you're right. hey, you're right, you're right, and we can only, I mean, who can forget how how some of those Juve players led us in that World Cup, right? Camoranesi, Cannavaro, Buffon, Del Piero, Zambrotta. They did wonders for us. So you may be onto something. Unfortunately, I think this generation of players doesn't have it in them. Um, isn't gambling legal in Italy? Why would these guys risk betting on illegal platforms in the first place? Or is the only issue that they bet specially on football? I don't, Matt, I don't know the specifics. What I can say from some of the articles that I've read is that they chose specifically some of the website that they reported that Tonali and Zagnolo and Fagioli reportedly used were websites that are for specific sums of money, and also are allow you in a way to basically launder your money. So I don't know what that entails, but that's what it comes down to. That it's that there are platforms that, and the problem is that now Nicolo Zagnolo's lawyer, for example, came out and said out in the open, no, he liked blackjack and he liked poker. He may have used platforms that were illegal, but he didn't know about it. That's probably the worst excuse a lawyer has made in God knows how long, uh, because it's out in the open which platforms are legal and illegal, and especially if you're into betting, then I'm 100% sure. So slow news day, Cesar. No, well, I tried to. This is not. I mean, this is just something that we do in order to entertain ourselves. There is, international break. And still, some things are going on. Obviously, this international break has caused a lot of turmoil in Serie A with how things were going with Napoli, with how things are going now with Juve, with this scandal, with the Pogba thing, with Atalanta lose Jens Bangsbo, or the magician. So their legendary fitness coach slash magician is no longer with Atalanta after 5 years. Um, I get a guy who has spent too much time in prison. Corona's whole deal looks like vengeance and payback. We shall see. Well, yeah, but the problem is that in Italy, if you start barking up the wrong tree, you'll have to walk around with some bodyguards. I assure you. Andy, what's your take on Tammy's return? He's probably fallen out of favor, but needs to either fit him into our plans or sell him, which requires time and to perform well enough in either scenario. Yeah, I think going back to Roma more specifically, I think Tammy Abraham is a big question mark at this point, because this is a player that I don't think he was supposed to be with us anymore this season. I think this is a player that was looking to leave in the summer. I believe Roma and the player himself were already set on parting ways, and the injury only slowed it down, because I don't envision Tammy staying. But at the same time, as you say, this period of recovery will take quite some time, and we don't know the version of Tammy that we will get. Whether this will still be a player that is fit, that is strong, that has pace, or whether this will be a totally different player, a player also that lacks confidence, and more so, how much will he play? Because if he comes back in March or April, hey, we're that's the time where it's where you can't really run experiments. It's a time where you really need to put pressure on. You need to put the foot on the pedal and go all the way. And in order to do that, you need guarantees. You need players that deliver the results. You need them to deliver. I don't know if Tammy Abraham post ACL is a good idea. So on my side, I don't see a future for Tammy at Roma, but perhaps Roma will not have a solution, will not have an option to part ways with him next summer. who knows? And who knows what happens to Lukaku? These are things that cannot be really spoken in too much depth in October, because a lot of these newspapers, even today, there were articles, saying, well, Lukaku is doing so well for Roma, but he will likely leave at the end of the season. And I'm like, what? How? How do you know that? Because it all really, I mean, something like that strongly depends on Roma's chances of finishing in top four. So finishing top four can change everything for you, even Romelu Lukaku staying. But also, let's calm ourselves. Lukaku is having a wonderful start to the season. He's scoring for club, he's scoring for country, but a lot of things can happen from October until May. So let's put on the brakes and wait and see what can happen. um, and so I think we can also we can transition to some of the other stuff that we may have heard over the last few days. So it's been brought to our attention, as always. The season starts, and you spend all summer long thinking that you've had enough of the rumors, you've had enough of the names, and the transfer window closes around the end of August, and you're very happy because you finally can focus on the football that takes place on the pitch. Well, unfortunately, no, because we are already being linked with several players ahead of January. We are hearing that Roma are looking to add another defender to their roster, because this is a team that, as you guys know, has exactly been very injury prone to start the season, to the point that Brian Cristante has had to play in the defense with Diego Llorente out, with Chris Smalling out, with Evan Dika slowly slotting in, after joining Roma in June. And it has been a pretty harsh period for our defense. People forget we still have Marash Kumbula out, who, I mean, he may still have a few months left in his recovery. Probably will aim to return before the end of the year, but when will he be fully match fit? Who knows? Um, so that's why Roma, in that rumor mill, are being linked with several free agent and some other players that are not free agents. So the most notorious names and probably the most unappealing names that we've heard and we've been linked to over the last few days are those of Jerome Boateng and Mustafi. Two guys who are 30 plus. Well, Mustafi is younger than Boateng by 4 years, but both players clearly in a bad place in their career. Add to that the fact that Jerome Boateng has been accused of domestic violence and has been to trial, and it's quite awful, the fact that we are even being linked with these two players that, in my opinion, are not good anymore and should not be anywhere near a professional football pitch, because Boateng hasn't had a good season since probably 2017, and Mustafi perhaps was never really good to begin with, and has played on and off at Levante in La Liga. I think he had like 10 appearances in 2 seasons, so struggled with injuries. Those are two names that are definitely not being considered by Roma. These are names of players that are long gone, whose careers are far over, and you can't really say that they could wish for a new start, fresh start at Roma. But on this note, we are also hearing other names. So we got Salzburg's Solé and Genoa's Dragusin. Now, these are two players that play for clubs who will never, ever let their players go for free. Dragusin, a guy who I think came up through the ranks at Juve, but ended up playing for Salernitana and now at Genoa. Good defender, yes, but he's is the kind of player that Genoa will ask upwards of 15 to 20 million. Same thing for Solé of Salzburg. These are names that of players that I don't think Roma could aim for in January. However, a more interesting profile, and I know that it really depends on how you look at things and also how you look at the spell of Jose Mourinho at Tottenham. More interesting profile is that of Eric Dier, or Dyer. A defender that has done well, in my opinion, has done well at Tottenham, well, when called upon in various positions, and from defensive midfielder to center back. A player who now has been completely, basically, been cut off from Tottenham's first team. Hasn't made a single appearance this season, and his contract is set to expire next summer. So this could be, I think, an interesting situation given Roma's needs, given Roma's financial situation, financial capabilities. Roma will, if they will make an investment in January, it will be a low cost operation. As always, guys, this is a team that still is dealing with financial fair play. These things don't just vanish into thin air. I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this name, because I know that people are very split on this, and I know that especially people that follow Jose Mourinho more closely may not be very enthusiastic about having players from Tottenham brought into Roma. But I also do think that this is a name that could work. For what Roma are looking for. Roma are looking for something low cost, low risk, a temporary solution also for when Evan Ndika will be out to AFCON. So Evan Ndika will probably be gone with his national team between January and February. And so then you're looking at a very limited backline. I think somebody like Eric Dier could be useful. Could be useful to the cause, and this is a player that Mourinho knows. This is a player that is versatile, like it or not. Has struggled with injuries in recent years. So let's see what you guys think. In the meantime, I also wanted to read Anthony's comment on Tammy. Another take on Tammy. I see a lot of Roma fans saying, well, we don't need Tammy. We have Lukaku and Belotti, true. But if one of them goes down and Tammy comes back, isn't that a good thing? Well, no, definitely there is, with Roma, I always say you always need depth, right? You always need depth because we've been in situations where it was apparent that that depth was nowhere to be found, and usually it really cost us a lot. With Lukaku and Belotti, the situation also different because we still have Sardar Azmoun. I think a lot of people forget about it, and I know it's easy to forget because this is a guy who unfortunately hasn't had enough time to make an impact at Roma so far. Very few appearances, very few minutes played. Not the best start. We'll see what else. We also have Marcos Leonardo potentially coming in January. If the reports that we see are true, he could be coming in January, but he could be also be leaving on loan immediately after signing with Roma for the remainder of the season. So let's see. I see not many people are very excited about Eric there because I don't see a lot of comments. I see Amazing Vincent saying we need to invest in a young unknown center back like we did for Ibanez. Well, that's yeah, I mean, but I think that's also a good option, and it's something that Roma will consider. I'm putting Eric's Dier name out there because this is, it's a bigger profile. It's somebody like from the Premier League, and we've seen that players from the Premier League, even those that we doubt and whose impact we question, like Chris Smalling, eventually when they come to Italy, they take on a new life. So that is why, and I also think because Eric Dier would be eligible for the growth decree, so even what a large salary is, and the Premier League would be automatically decreased in Italy. And also Tottenham could let him leave on favorable terms, probably a very small fee, if anything, and or maybe a small percentage on a sell-on clause. So that's definitely something that Roma could achieve in January. Let's see. Mazin says if he is coming on loan, then no issue. I guess what Dier? No, Dier cannot come on loan. He can only come on permanent deal because he would have 6 months left on his contract with Tottenham. It expires in June 2024, so it would have to be a permanent deal. For real, what are the odds we land Marcos Leonardo? Is there a legit agreement in place? Would he really pick Roma amid Premier League interest? I don't know if the Premier League interest has materialized into anything, Stephen. You know, you hear a lot about Premier League interest, but a lot of the times those things are just, you know, just rumors. With Roma, there is definitely something more concrete. Obviously, Marcos Leonardo was very close to joining Roma. Talks fell through because Santos were facing relegation, and also their management was undergoing very drastic changes. So the Brazilian club decided to pull out of talks, to postpone them. Roma insisted on Santos. They said they will be back in January. You know, is there an agreement in place? No. So far, there's more of a verbal agreement, a verbal promise of let's get together in January and make it happen. Just based on the fact that Marcos Leonardo was pushing like hell to join Roma, and in the end, it didn't happen, but Santos promised him that they will guarantee his move in January. Whether that is to Roma or anywhere else, they will guarantee his transfer in January. So we will have to see. But I think Thiago Pinto has been very open about Marcos Leonardo. He in his press conference at the end of the transfer window, he said openly that is a player that we're still interested in. So there is definitely a chance, but you have to consider that if somebody like Marcos Leonardo were to come, this is a 20-year-old from Brazil, Roma would more than likely send him out on loan to a smaller Serie A side for the 5-6 months of the remainder of the season. Dier could be a sneaky pickup in January if it makes sense. I think the reason he was phased out at Tottenham is because he's slow. He's still an England international. Alex says, Andy, Dier was a very good player under Jose. He's like Lukaku. When loved and encouraged, he plays very well. He will be a good addition because I like him personally. Dier also speaks, obviously, Portuguese. He gets on. He seemed to get on very well with Jose. And this is, again, he's a player that gives you that versatility that Roma need. When we talk about depth with Roma, we always mean players that can adapt to any situation. Because as you see, depth at Roma means having players like Cristante who can play with a midfield, backline. You can put him in the attack, he'll try and deliver. It means having El Shaarawy, a guy who can play as a left back, as a winger, as a striker, wherever it is needed. It means having players that are flexible in what they can do and are not moaning around and saying, well, I'm not comfortable playing here. So that's the depth that Roma need when they are competing on several fronts. And I think Dier comes very well into that, fits into that. I wouldn't see that as a long-term investment. I would see that as perhaps a 2-year contract, something like that. But again, we're talking about rumors. I think this is just going based on the preferences that Jose Mourinho may have ahead of the summer. He may want experience. He may want somebody that he's already worked with, and he may want somebody that, again, he can play center back. And then when Evan Dika comes back from AFCON, he can play in the midfield. That kind of thinking. Dier can do well at Roma. Change of scenery helps him with Serie A, slower tempo as well. Was appreciated by Jose and would suit middle of a back three. Philip says, just don't want older guys that come to Rome who underperform and happily ride the bench like so many others in the past. Well, I think it really depends on the circumstances. So many players that seem to be, well past their prime came to Roma and played like hell. I mean, even somebody like Nemanja Matic, in all his right, he could have just been very, very lazy. He could have just sat back and basically rode on that reputation of his of being one of Jose's soldiers. Instead, we saw the Nemanja Matic that we got. For 1 year, he worked his ass off. He was incredible. He was a class act. He made his difference. He made his impact felt. So we've had players and players. We've had those, yes, that have been very happy to ride the bench, or very happy to be here just to enjoy the nightlife. Ashley Cole, or players that really have worked their butt off, even even in difficult circumstances, and even on a temporary period, like Sergio Oliveira, or to a different extent, Henrik Mkhitaryan, who was brilliant in Mourinho's first season and unfortunately left to a rival. Amazing Vincent. Marcos Leonardo is a player I really hope we don't miss out on. We don't necessarily need him in January, but it's a great investment to gain a profit on in the future. I think Marcos Leonardo, more than that, he's a 20-year-old guy who's scoring left and right. From what I've seen, plenty of pace, very exciting talent, and somebody that Roma are very interested in, because a club like Roma doesn't negotiate for over a month for a 20-year-old just because, for the hell of it, No, that means that is a player they care about. And for Thiago Pinto, a man who has been very discreet about what he does, unlike some of his predecessors in the form of Ramon Monchi or Gianluca Petracchi. Thiago Pinto doesn't talk much. But when he so openly admitted to the fact that Roma were pursuing Marcos Leonardo and will still try and pursue him, then there has to be truth to that, and there has to be a real, concrete, strong interest, not only on the part of the upper management, but also just Mourinho and company. They need to have that. Means that they've identified Leonardo as their guy. Still, his contract. We're talking about Dier. Still, his contract expires, so it's a permanent deal only. Dier only fits a back three, and Jose's future is far from guaranteed. So that will also limit us in our next probable managerial search. Absolutely, yes. We don't know if Jose stays, and someone like Dier would come in for Mourinho, right? It would be a player that if he comes in, if we actually try to pursue Dier, it would only be because Mourinho identified him as a suitable alternative to Evan Dika, and as a good temporary reinforcement. So that obviously would mean, let's see what happens with Mourinho, and let's see what happens with a lot of players that are here partly because of Mourinho. So if Dier does come, Smalling and Tammy will surely have influence. Oh yeah, definitely. And let's see what happens with Chris Smalling. I think this is another thing we can touch upon, because I am personally, I'm very worried about this Smalling thing. Smalling today's newspaper Il Tempo revealed that yes, Smalling tomorrow will most likely come back to group training. He's been out for over a month. Since that Milan game, had a very poor start to the season, made some very unusual mistakes given his experience, his reputation within the team. The Smalling that we know has always been the leader of the defense, and the guy basically who made very few mistakes, earned practically zero yellow cards, and yet we saw a Smalling that was shaky, that was inconsistent, and that didn't communicate too well with his other fellow teammates. The problem with Smalling now is that he's reportedly suffering of chronic tendonitis, and that means that this is something that will resurface every now and then and could keep him sidelined more times like this, like a month out. This is something that he's been reportedly dealing with since since last spring. So around March or April, I don't remember when he went down, but he did go down, if I'm not mistaken. Since then, he's developed chronic tendonitis, and that is something that has also been bothering him all preseason long. He played through that in Budapest, and he played through that in preseason, but now was unable to continue. Roma didn't want to risk him any further. We will have to see the Smalling that comes back now. And that's why I say I'm worried, because this is, this is an aging player. And we saw him, wasn't it, in his second season, once Roma make his deal permanent. So he initially comes back on loan under Fonseca. He has a wonderful first season. Roma do everything they can to keep him permanently. They do so. And as soon as they do that, Smalling is practically injured all of his second season. He's unable to make consecutive appearances, and basically we have to reconsider his role at the club. With Mourinho, he resurfaces. He has two excellent years, and now I'm very worried because Smalling at the end of the day was the number one guy in the defense. Like, the defense was Smalling and everybody else. And now for Roma to build consistency, you need consistent performers. You cannot go from having Brian Cristante to having, Smalling lead you for one game, 2 games, and then again Brian Cristante, and then maybe Brian Cristante is unavailable because he has to fill in the midfield. And so what do? It cannot be that. It cannot be Zeki Salik slotting in as a center back. That is why I'm worried about this particular situation, because as I said on the podcast, I think Roma are getting it done in the attack, which is a very pleasant surprise. This is a team that last season was unable to do anything. Romelu Lukaku now has scored more goals at this point in the season than Tammy Abraham all of last season. Let that sink in. So that's what we were working with. The problem is the defense. The defense, as well as they've performed over the last 3 to 4 games, that needs to continue. And for that to continue, you need to build consistency, because having Brian Cristante out there all the time will not help you, say, against the likes of Inter or Lazio. You need proper defenders there. It's one thing to face Frosinone, face Servette, with Cristante in the defense. It's a whole other thing when you're playing head-to-head with some of your main competitors for top 4. Dier would be a good addition, but I think we need a quick center back as a temporary replacement for Indika Love from India. Thank you so much, Siddhant, for following us. I think I agree on the pace. But you have to also consider that these investments, and I agree with the thought of bringing in somebody younger. I would agree with that to the extent that really somebody like, say, remember, like say Gonzalo Villar, who I know many people laugh at that, but for that for a temporary deal, that was a good deal. And for the money involved, it was a good deal. I mean, this was a guy coming up from Elche. Nobody had heard of him. And all of a sudden he's there and he's doing great work right off the bat in a very tough period for Fonseca's team. And would be exciting to get somebody like that. Also, as you said, from a younger profile that has an upside, right? Because with Dier, again, you get a finished product. I think it's just a matter of low-cost operation. And also with Mourinho, it's always more favorable to give him somebody that he's familiar with, right? because as soon as you throw him somebody that he hasn't seen or he hasn't worked with before, it takes time. And it's not, it doesn't work that way. 1-2 quick, and if Indika is out for January and February, you need an answer right away. You need an alternative that is ready to go in, ready to play from the first minute until the last. Were people excited for Smalling? He seems like a decent Mancini backup. Dier. Oh, Dier seems like a decent Mancini backup. Yeah, I don't know if people weren't too excited about Chris Smalling. I know that people were making memes out of Chris Smalling for some time due to his final years at United with Phil Jones, the one and only Phil Jones. Smalling was very quick to turn the opinion around. Smalling was unbelievably quick to in a defense as shaky as Paulo Fonseca's defense was, which was incredible because Paulo Fonseca's first game is conceding 3 goals to Genoa. Smalling was an absolute rock in that defense, and even in the worst defeats where we would get absolutely destroyed by the likes of Atalanta and Lazio. Smalling was always there, and he made a wonderful job of it, of really transitioning from the Premier League to Serie A with such ease. And yeah, I think Jose should start building the first 11 with players we know can survive any tackles. The injury-prone ones can come from the bench. I think stability will be achieved by doing this. There is a problem with injury prone players, definitely, and I think it has more to do with them playing through it or rushing. So with Paulo Dybala and Lorenzo Pellegrini, these are two players that have played through injuries before. These are two players that have always anxiously tried to get back to the pitch and play despite small lingering issues that then developed into bigger ones, more nagging issues. And I think that's the same case with Renato Sanchez. We can also talk about him because Renato Sanchez is supposedly also should be coming back soon to group training. This is a player that had a wonderful first half against Empoli. He scores against Empoli, then Mourinho takes him off after 45 minutes and has him play 3 days later from the start against Sheriff. And we all know what happens. Renato Sanchez just walks off the pitch. And I think Roma realized that this is a player that is very, very fragile, perhaps more fragile than they initially thought. And according to the latest reports in the Italian media, Roma have devised a special plan of recovery for Renato Sanchez to make it more comfortable for him to come back. They don't want to risk any further with Sanchez. Sanchez, in Mourinho's opinion and in his staff's opinion, is a key player for Roma, can be a key player for Roma, but in order for that to happen, he needs to be on the actual pitch. So we will see how that develops. I don't expect to see Sanchez on against Monza. I could see him against Inter. So a few games from now, we will first have Monza, then we'll have Slavia Prague, and then Inter. I would envision Renato Sanchez coming back for that. Dybala and Pellegrini, these are more serious matters because these are two players that I think have made their respective conditions much worse by playing through them, by playing despite not being 100%. So these are guys that are supposedly looking to come back again in the derby against Lazio on November 9. Whether that will happen, I don't know. I could see Lorenzo Pellegrini coming back. Dybala, this is a guy who's as of late has definitely not shown enough confidence in his own physique. Romano just posted that Chalobah is expected to part ways with Chelsea in January. Him on loan, who was linked with us in the past, should be the most of what Roma should go for. Ala Tomori. I definitely agree. The problem with, I think, Chalobah is he's also been eyed by Inter, very strongly linked with Inter. I think more strongly than with us, but that's definitely somebody that could help us out. I still stick to the belief that Roma will aim for experience, just like they did with Sergio Oliveira. Remember, all of a sudden, in that final push for the Conference League, who did we turn to? To Sergio Oliveira, a 30-year-old midfielder from Porto who had been basically excluded from the first team. I mean, had like 3 or 4 appearances that season, and then all of a sudden he comes into us on a 6-month-long loan and actually contributes to our Conference League run. So that is the type of profile that I expect. If Roma can land Dier and this allows Jose to move Cristante up, and we get a healthy Sanchez in the attack with Belotti and Lukaku scoring next round on me, boys. Yeah, that would be very exciting. I say it, and Mourinho also has said it. We don't know the full potential of this team is because we haven't seen them at their full, at their healthy. We haven't seen them. We've seen these guys at their 60%, 70%, but never 100%. There's always been that key player missing. There's always been something that wasn't clicking enough. Now that the attack is clicking, we expect the defense to step up and continue to improve and continue to not concede so many goals as they did in the opening of the season. But I also expect more consistency and better results with regards to the team's fitness levels, which I think we can all agree were deplorable to begin the season with. The team looked slow, looked flat, looked not confident enough to start the season with. You had teams like Salernitana and Hellas Verona and Genoa running circles around you. So those are my expectations for our return from international break. There is still a few games left for the international break. Let's keep our fingers crossed that some of the players that are out there, Houssem Aouar, Sardar Azmoun, even who's with Iran, Romelu Lukaku, Gianluca Mancini, Brian Cristante, they can all hopefully return safely home, because at this point of the season, you really need to put the pressure on, up the tempo, and show that you're not the Roma team that started off so badly, and you have to put those bad performances behind you. Those are the only things that I can say for right now. Also, hopefully, this Nicola Zaleski thing with the betting, hopefully that is cleared up right away, and hopefully there is no truth to those allegations. Hopefully that's just part of the rumor mill, and if there is truth, then there has to be some form of punishment, and there also has to be um, some accountability either on the player or on the club's part, because these things, it's bad enough that it's happening in Serie A. It would be even worse if it's happening in your club, in your home. So, guys, I thank you everybody for joining me on such late notice this Sunday. I hope everybody had a good weekend, or at least is going to have still a few hours left of this good weekend before heading into work tomorrow. Thank you for giving me some time with you. If you like the channel, please subscribe, and if you haven't liked the video yet, please click the like button on the live stream. If you like our website, if you like the YouTube channel, if you like our work on Twitter, please consider supporting the show by becoming a patron on patreon.com/Roma Press. You can get a lot of exclusive content and benefits from that, and it really helps us going. So we have a wonderful community of patrons, and even a live stream like this where we have a few people, but we still have them. We still have those consistent listeners and viewers. It's only possible because of the patrons. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Hopefully we can have some good news in the coming days. Right after this, I will record a podcast with John, which will drop later tomorrow. So hopefully I'll see you next time for some good news. And in the meantime, thank you for talking to me. Thank you for chatting. And I'll see you in the next live stream. So thank you so much. Forza Roma.